So you've probably heard this term thrown around a lot lately, zero trust. It's pretty much everywhere in cybersecurity. But what does it really mean? Is it just another industry buzzword, or is it a genuine fundamental shift in how we protect our digital lives? Well, in the next few minutes, we're going to break it all down and see why this is one of the most important changes happening in security right now.
Okay, so at its heart, zero trust completely flips the old way of thinking on its head. You see, for decades, the rule was kind of simple. If you're inside the company network, hey, you must be a good guy, right? We trust you. But zero trust comes along and says, nope, not anymore. The new rule is trust nothing. And I mean nothing. Not the user, not their laptop, not even the network itself. Instead, you have to verify every single request, every single time. So you might be asking, why the huge shift? It's a great question. And to really get why zero trust is so important, we have to first look at why the old way, that digital fortress idea, is just, well, it's crumbling.
Think about it like this. For the longest time, we built our security like a medieval castle. We'd have these huge, thick walls, our perimeter defense, and a deep moat filled with firewalls. And the whole point was just to keep the bad guys out. The big assumption, and the critical flaw really, was that anyone who got inside those walls was automatically a friend. You know, once you're in, you're trusted. You could just wander around and access pretty much anything.
But here's the thing. In today's world, there are no walls. That whole idea of a neat, tidy network perimeter, it's gone. The castle walls have basically dissolved into thin air. I mean, just think about how we work now. Our most important stuff is in the cloud. Our teams are logging in from their kitchen tables, from coffee shops. They're everywhere. And here's the kicker. Sometimes the threat isn't even coming from the outside. The biggest weakness of that old castle model, once a bad actor got past the gate, it was a free-for-all. They could move around inside, what we call lateral movement, and nobody would even notice. That old model just wasn't built for this new borderless world. And that, right there, is the exact problem Zero Trust was born to fix. Its main idea is actually super simple, but it's incredibly powerful. It all boils down to one mantra.
Yeah, this quote really hits the nail on the head. The point isn't to just patch up the old system of trust, it's to throw it out completely. We're getting rid of the whole concept of a trusted inside network. From now on, you have to assume every part of the network is hostile territory. No safe zones.
So what does that actually look like day to day? Well, it means that every time you try to open a file or use an app, the system treats that request like it's coming from an attacker. I'm serious. It doesn't care if you're the CEO sitting in the corner office or an intern working from a coffee shop. You have to prove who you are and that you're allowed to be there every single time. Right, so if every single click is getting this level of scrutiny, how does the system decide what to do? How does it make these decisions so fast? Well, I think the best way to picture this is to imagine a digital courtroom. Every time you ask for access, your request is basically put on trial. And inside this courtroom, you've got a few key players, and each one has a very specific job. They all work together, kind of like a system of checks and balances, to reach a verdict: access permitted or access denied. First up, we have the judge. In the tech world, this is called the policy decision point, or PDP. Now, the judge doesn't actually enforce the sentence. Its only job is to look at all the facts, check the law, and then deliver a simple verdict: permit or deny. That's it. Okay, so who carries out the judge's order? That's the bouncer, or maybe the court bailiff. We call this the policy enforcement point, or PEP. This thing sits right in front of whatever you're trying to get to. It stops you at the door, radios the judge for a decision, and then it either lets you in or tells you to get lost, based on what the judge said. But wait a minute. A judge can't make a good decision without evidence, right? Of course not. And that's where the investigator comes in. This is the policy information point, or PIP. Its job is to run around and gather all the context for the case. Who is this user? Are they on a company laptop? Is it up to date? Where are they? All that juicy, real-time info gets fed directly to the judge so they can make an informed ruling. And finally, what's a courtroom without laws? The judge needs a rule book to follow. That's the job of the Policy Administration Point, or PAP. You can just think of it as the law library. This is where the actual security policies are written down and stored, the rules of the road. Things like, okay, engineers can get to the code, but only if they're on a corporate device, located in the US, and it's between 9 and 5. The judge checks this library for every single case. All right, so let's tie this all together. Here's the official diagram from NIST. That's the National Institute of Standards and Technology. And I know, at first glance, it looks pretty complicated, right? But now, because of our courtroom analogy, we know exactly what's going on here. The user tries to access something. The bouncer, the PEP, stops them. It asks the judge, the PDP, for a ruling. The judge checks with the investigator, the PIP, to get the facts. And based on those facts and the law book, it makes a call, and the bouncer enforces it. See? It's our entire digital courtroom all working together in a constant loop.
Okay, so that decision-making loop is basically the engine of Zero Trust. But what other gears and parts do you need to actually build this thing and make it strong?
There are really 4 big ideas here. First is microsegmentation. This is just a fancy way of saying you chop your network up into tiny, isolated pieces. That way, if a bad guy gets into one little room, they're trapped there. Next is least privilege access. The idea is dead simple. You only give people the absolute minimum level of access they need to do their job, nothing extra. Then, of course, you have multi-factor authentication. This is non-negotiable. It's that extra layer of proof that you are who you say you are. And finally, continuous monitoring. You have to be watching what's happening in real time so you can spot trouble the second it starts. Okay, this all sounds pretty good, right? But how do you actually do it? This is super important. Zero Trust is not a box you can just go out and buy. It's not a product. It's a journey. Yeah, it's something you do step by step, over time. And luckily, NIST gives us a pretty clear roadmap. It all starts with discovery. You gotta know what you have before you can protect it, right? Then you formulate your policies. Who gets to see what and when? After that, you identify what security tools you might already have that can help. Then you can start to implement those courtroom components, piece by piece. Finally, you verify that everything is actually working the way you want it to, and then you start all over again to continuously improve.
And that brings us to maybe the single most important thing to remember about all of this.
Look, Zero Trust is not a project with a start date and an end date. There is no finish line. It's really a new way of thinking, a new mindset. It's a commitment to always be validating, always be adapting. Because let's face it, the bad guys are always getting smarter, your business is always changing, and your security has to keep up. At the end of the day, Zero Trust is about accepting a simple reality. In a world without walls, security can't be a wall anymore. It has to be a process, something that's alive, intelligent, and constantly adapting. So yeah, security really is a journey, not a destination. The real question is, where on that journey will you start?